What's up guys, Carter here from Fireproof Plants, and today we are in Tucson, Arizona to see the legendary Plants for the Southwest. One of the oldest and most respected cactus and succulent nurseries in the United States. At one point they had one of the most comprehensive Lithops collections in the entire country. Now Anthony, the manager and plant guru here, is going to give us a tour of some of their biggest greenhouses and give us some secrets on how to care for these amazing plants.
Yeah, so I just graduated from the U of A studying plant sciences. I just really admire plants that can survive in the desert because it takes a lot of grit. This is our main house. Some of my favorite plants in this greenhouse are the allodichotomas. I have one on either side of me. Normally they grow straight up like this guy, but on the occasion some of them will get injured at a young age and branch out. And then we have this huge one far behind me that's been here since we opened in 1986. So it is a pretty old plant, as you can tell by the peeling bark, which is one of my favorite aspects of a lot of the desert plants, is how their bark just peels away as they grow from inside and crack out of their old skin. Now we're in our Lithops house. This is one of our most important houses. The Lithops are one of the things that we're most known for. At one point, we had one of the biggest labeled collections in America. We have a ton of plants and we produce a ton of plants each year. We get a lot of bees in this house. They end up pollinating for us a lot of the times. If we want a specific seed, we'll pollinate that plant, that species, so that we can make sure that it's pure. However, we don't really see much interbreeding between the species of Lithops. The Lithops are a plant that a lot of people say are pretty tricky. There's no magic recipe for plants, but we do have a schedule. We take care of them a little bit different than most people who take care of Lithops. We water once a week year-round, which a lot of people would say is crazy, way too much water for a Lithops. Here in Tucson, it is super dry for a lot of the year and super, super hot. So we've found that if you let the roots dry out too much, the baby root hairs will shrivel up and you'll just be left with the main taproot. And it's kind of hard for the plants to recover from that. But our watering in the summer is super, super light, just barely enough to get the dust off the surface. In the winter, when they're actively growing, we'll water them more. We'll water them so much that water actually drips out the bottom of the pot. But in the summer, we rarely water them enough that water comes out the bottom. With other plants, that would be an issue because of salt buildup, but the Lithops don't seem to mind salt in the soil so much. But it's the too much water when it gets hot and the soil stays wet when they're dormant and not actively growing and using that water. That's when bacteria can take over the soil and the Lithops will just look great one day and be a pile of brown jelly mush the next day if you give it too much water. Overall, they're winter growers, and so you can give them a lot more water in the winter. But different places have different climates, and so you need to find a schedule that works for you. I believe Stephen Hammer in Southern California waters 3 or 4 times a year, but we just water a lot more, and that works for us. We've found a schedule that works, and we stick with it.
When watering the Lithops on our visit, Anthony demonstrated an amazing ability of these plants. Lithops seed pods react to moisture through a hydrocastic reaction, which is a natural process where the dry capsule expands when moistened. In the wild, raindrops trigger the pods and splash the seeds onto wet soil. By opening during rain, Lithops can guarantee their seeds are cast when the soil is most saturated.
A lot of the Lithops are from a habitat that has kind of a rocky pavement, almost like we have in some places here in the Sonoran Desert, where the rain washes the rocks from any dirt and debris that builds up. And so it's like almost like a cobblestone pavement. And so they look like rocks. A lot of people call them living stones. Part of their evolution is looking like their habitat. In habitat, they grow with a bunch of different rocks. And so it's really hard to see them in habitat. And in their habitat, they get a ton of sun. Sometimes they're in a little bit of grassy areas. But yeah, we try to replicate that a little bit in some of our show pots. The look of the soil with rocks and the lithops growing between the cracks in the rocks. The Conophytums have a similar schedule to the lithops. Most of them are pretty dormant in the summer. You can see a lot of them have these crusty old skins that are covering green tissue underneath. When it cools down and when we start to water them a little bit more, the green will burst out from those crispy helmets that they're wearing right now. And then when it heats up again in the late spring, they'll start to shrivel up, we'll start to water less, and their old skins become like armor to protect them from the sun. Different Conophytums burst out at different times. Most of them are like the lithops in that they're dormant for the heat of the summer. And yeah, we just care for them pretty much the same as we care for the lithops. Once a week watering year round. In the summer though, it's a really, really small volume. Just to cool them down, just to give them a little humidity in the soil so that their tiny root hairs don't shrivel up.